This is Catalina Gutierrez, a powerful lady and aspiring builder who lived in the middle of Argentina. But on an unknown evening in July 2024, she would just disappear, scare her family, friends, and more than 100,000 fans. As the police slowly arrived to begin their investigation, Catalina's parents were busy listening to stories going around town. When they followed leads about a strange vehicle, they came across something very scary. That was just the start of the terrible surprises in this terrible story. Though at this point, Catalina Gutierrez is the case. Before we dive deeply into this case, you are watching Everything Crime Where Story Matters. Please hit the subscribe button and like this video for more of true crime cases like this. Welcome to Argentina, a beautiful country. Argentina is happy to be the 8th largest country in the world. It is located between Chile's tall Andes and the extremely large Atlantic Ocean. You shouldn't be surprised to learn that it has a very different and large scenery that is full of life everywhere you look. But there is a darker truth beneath this pretty surface. Deforestation and pollution cast a shadow over Argentina's natural beauty. This is caused by the relentless march of large-scale farming and grazing for food business, which is done to make money. Sadly, that's not the only thing that's being eaten here. Both the environment and the very core of Argentine society are in danger because Argentina has a much higher crime rate than the rest of the world, including the 9th highest murder rate in the world. This is because corruption is deeply rooted in the country's economy. So I guess you could say it's not a surprise that we want to explore this country. Now we're going back in time to 2023 and to the lively city of Córdoba. It's about 500 m northwest of Buenos Aires, which is the country's busy city. You could say that Córdoba is one of the richest towns in the country because it is a major center for business, government, and education. But like the rest of the country, it has very high crime rates. From small crimes like pickpocketing and scams to major crimes like murder and drug dealing, this keeps the police very busy, of course. On the warm evening of July 18th, 2023, a small family from the Anacata area felt a heavy sense of unease. It was because their daughter, Catalina Gutierrez, wasn't there. Even when the moon went down and the sun came up, there was still no sign of her. The Gutierrez family tried to hold on to hope, but as the hours went by, their worry turned into fear. So they went to the local police station together and made the right choice by reporting her missing. Within Catalina's close family and friends, there was her mother Eleonora, her father Marcelo, her sister Lucia, her boyfriend Lazaro Oliva, and her friend Nisto. The group was sad. Someone in the group said that Catalina had not been seen since around 9 p.m. the night before. It was said that she was in a good mood when she left her family to go bowling with friends at the Patio Alma Shopping Center, a famous spot in the middle of the city. She left her boyfriend Lazaro a happy voice message before she left, telling him that she was on her way and that she was looking forward to seeing him soon. Catalina would never get to the shopping center, so that promise was never kept. She sent him a voice message, and it would be the last message anyone would read from her. Others who cared about her became more and more worried as the hours turned into night. Calls to her phone and texts would go ignored, which was strange for Catalina because she always had a phone with her and would answer it when she needed to. Her friends, who were scared and confused, called her family at that moment, but they hadn't heard anything since she left home either. They kept moving and praying quietly as the night went on. And when morning came, there was still no sign of Catalina and no word to reassure them about her whereabouts. As we all know, they chose to go to the police office around noon. Soon after, Lazaro and Nestor joined the family. Their presence showed how much Catalina meant to those around her, both in terms of love and care. They didn't trust the situation, so it's not a surprise that they all asked for help right away. The bad news is that Catalina's disappearance came at the same time as some other scary reports. People in another city area called the police to say they saw a strange face in the shadows by sunrise. They saw an unknown car on the side of the road with its windows smoked out. People outside couldn't get a good look inside the car. Not that they wanted to, because it was broken and smelled like ash. And as you may or may not have guessed, it had a terrible surprise inside. Now, before we go any further, who was Catalina Gutierrez? How did this horrible story begin? The lovely Eleonora Volenverda and Marcelo Gutierrez had a daughter named Catalina Gutierrez in 2003. Before she was born, her family of four, including her older sister Lucia, chose to move to the outskirts of Cordoba City and make a home that was warm and caring. Because her father Marcelo was a famous architect, the family was always creative and ambitious. Her mother Eleonora raised their two girls and made sure they all had a very happy and balanced life. Catalina and Lucia were close like sisters and could never be separated. Growing up, they were known to be both brothers and best friends. Only their father truly valued how close they were. He was proud to say that his girls had a divine connection and would rarely fight. Catalina became close to her father as they grew up, and she helped him follow his dreams. Mostly, this meant singing and traveling. When she was young, he would teach her to play the guitar, which she would enjoy doing all through her teens. Catalina wanted to do what her father did for a living because she saw how passionate he was about it. After finishing high school, she went to University of Cordoba to study design and made her dream come true. Catalina wasn't just a smart student. She was also a joy to be around. Her friends said that she was very attractive because she was friendly, bubbly, and sure of herself. And her beauty and charm were known by many people beyond her close friends and family. Our knowledge comes from the fact that she had a lot of followers on social media sites like Instagram and TikTok. Catalina showed many pictures from her life, like the stylish clothes she wore, the fun things she did in Cordoba, the trips she took with family and friends, and the special time she had with her sister Lucia. And of course, her dog. She got over 100,000 fans on Instagram and 35,000 followers on TikTok, showing that a lot of people like what she posted. Because she was so famous online, local brands would sponsor her. This gave her a sense of business ownership and helped pay for her schooling. She would meet a lot of new people and have a lot of new chances, including love. When she went to college, around this time she met a man named Lazaro Oliva. Both Catalina and Lazaro were deeply religious Christians and were studying design. They quickly found things they had in common. It was normal for their bond to grow, and soon it turned into a loving relationship. It wasn't long before they made it public, and everyone could see how much they loved each other. It was clear that they loved each other, and they were very open about their relationship. They posted a lot of pictures of their life together on social media, which is something that many female leaders think is bad for their image. They talk to each other all the time. In fact, they talked so much that we know her last message was sent to him on the night she disappeared. But even though her voice message was short and sweet, it was going to give him the creeps for hours to come. "I'm on my way, my love," was all she said. "See you soon." Lazaro was her partner and the last person to hear from her, so he was bound to be a key person of interest. His alibi, on the other hand, was very strong because he was with friends in the middle of a shopping center that was full of security cameras. So police quickly decided that he wasn't guilty. It's important to note that the cops didn't want to get involved right away because Catalina was an adult and hadn't been missing for more than 24 hours. So as you might expect, especially in a place with a lot of crime, her case was not taken care of right away. But her family didn't like this because they were sure she would never leave them in the dark like that. So they decided to look into it themselves by following Catalina's steps again. On the night of July 16th, her family put together the last few minutes before she disappeared. These people now knew that she had driven off in her mom's silver Renault Clio to meet her close friend Nestor Castillo before going to the Patio shopping center. It made sense that this would be a good place to begin. But when her mom called Nestor to see how things were going, he told her that Catalina never showed up and didn't pick him up. He looked out his window and saw nothing out of the ordinary on his quiet home street. When he realized something was wrong, he made up his mind to call Lazaro. In the morning, Lazaro was very worried about his girlfriend by this point. So he and his friends started looking for Catalina. But unfortunately, no matter how hard they looked, they could not find her. By noon, they were at the police station with her family. Catalina's sister said that they always shared where they were on their phones to stay safe. While they were filling out the report, Lucia checked Catalina's iPhone and saw that it was pinging at 3900 Pedro Achar Street, which is a neighborhood in southern Cordoba. It was worrying that this lead matched up with reports from other people in the neighborhood who had called the police to say that strange people had been hanging out in the area the night before, and that an unknown car had shown up overnight. As a result, the police decided to look into what was going on with that vehicle, because the connection between these facts seemed rather strange. What they found would break the Gutierrez family's lives forever, which was very sad. When the police got to the scene, they saw the silver Renault Clio parked next to the road. In the back seat of the car, they found the partly burned remains of a young woman, which was very sad. As you might guess, Catalina was quickly found to be the victim. It looked like the fire was started quickly and not very well since most of her body was still there. After that, the area was closed off so that police could look into it, and Catalina's body was sent in for an autopsy. And the results of the autopsy would show a horrible truth. The fire was what killed her. It was just an attempt to get rid of all the proof. The real cause of her death was asphyxiation, and the many injuries on her body showed that she'd been beaten up. When Catalina's body was found, the report of a missing person turned into an investigation into her death. That being said, two important questions came up. Who killed her, and why? After this, the police quickly named a number of important suspects, including her boyfriend Lazaro, as we all know. But as we all know, surveillance cams and eyewitnesses would quickly rule him out. With that in mind, the police turned their attention to Nestor, who was the next person who should have seen her. Detectives chose to look into it more. When they found out that he didn't have a solid alibi, we agreed that she would pick him up so that they could go to the mall together. We all know that he says she never made it to his property, though, which is, to say the least, interesting, because that's not what her cell phone data showed. There were records on her phone that showed she had been outside or near his land for 38 minutes. When they looked even more closely, they saw that Nestor had removed a number of text messages. This does not seem like the actions of a man who is not guilty. Do you agree? Since he is now the center of attention, I think it's time to introduce you to Nastasio. A person named Nestor Estio was friendly with Catalina. Nestor moved to a big city to follow his dream of studying design. He was born in the beautiful Bariloche region of Argentina, which is close to the border with Chile. Of course, this drive is what brought him into Catalina's life. In the end, they knew each other through mutual friends, and over time, they became close friends. They got along great. But Catalina was already deeply involved with someone else. Not only that, but she also never showed any personal interest in Nestor. Catalina thought that their relationship was only friendly. A lot of the time, Nestor would come over to the Gutierrez house and hang out with her boyfriend and her dog. His limits should have been very clear both to him and to other people. He cooked with Catalina, learned with her, and played with a family dog. By all accounts, he seemed like a good friend who would be there for her. Catalina's mother remembered nothing strange about him. On the inside, though, Nestor had strong feelings that went far beyond friendship. He was actually crazy in love with Catalina, so much so that his admiration was almost like a dream. Every chance he got, he made an effort to spend time with her. He also kept in touch with her often, and was always a part of her online life, commenting on many of her posts. It was clear that his repressed feelings were dangerously close to the surface, which was rather upsetting, even though he pretended to value her relationship with Lazaro. But as soon as police started to look into Nestor's past, a lot of disturbing stories started to come out. One of Catalina's old classmates told of a frightening experience she had with him at camp, where he tried to force himself on her after a night out. It sounded like she had to push him away and yell at him because he wouldn't understand no. Another woman who used to date him would also come forward and say that Nestor was protective and very controlling while they were together. These two new details gave a scary picture of a man who could act out violently and dangerously when he wasn't given what he wanted. Being so hostile toward a friend in a normal situation makes you wonder what he might be able to do when he is deeply in love with someone he can never have. Even though there were bad feelings going on, Catalina never said she was worried about Nestor. She saw him as one of her best friends and trusted him enough to let him into her life. Together, this information and the data from the cell phone were finally enough to get a search warrant and arrest Nestor. He was questioned about Catalina's death while they searched his land the other way. Also, I think it was pretty clear during that conversation that he wasn't naturally good at lying. They would ask him questions, and he would change his story from, "I never saw her that night," to, "Well, okay, maybe I saw her, but only for a couple of minutes." It was clear that he wasn't able to handle the stress. And as more questions were asked, he looked even more out of sorts. It was at that moment that he finally broke down. He started crying and said, "She was the love of my life." The next thing that happened was a horrible statement that made Catalina's family hate this man who they used to think was a good friend. Detectives made a rough timeline of what happened that night while Nestor was in custody and being questioned. There was a lot of proof against him. Investigators found that Catalina had left the family home around 9 p.m. and then texted Nestor to let him know she was on her way. Nestor replied twice and then deleted the whole chat. As we now know, this was an early attempt to hide his tracks. When she got to his house, Nestor was already there to greet her. Unfortunately, the full details of what happened are still not clear. However, police think that he told her how he really felt about her while the car was still parked outside his house. The situation got worse when Catalina turned him down. He lost it, and fighting broke out. One of her best friends then attacked her very badly while she was still sitting in her mother's car. Based on the information we have, Nestor probably strangled her and then hit her several times, hurting her all over. Even though Nestor had been hurt, there were no defensive cuts on him. This meant that Catalina might not have been able to fight back. Sad to say, he put Catalina's body in the back seat of the car after killing her and then drove off. Around 10:20 p.m., a traffic camera caught Eleonora's silver Renault Clio driving along Valero Avenue, which is a key road that connects Nestor's house to the spot where the car and her body would later be found. He then took the car to 3900 Pedro Achar Street, parked it, and tried to set it on fire to get rid of all the proof. There was one important mistake he made, though. He forgot to take Catalina's phone out of the car. The phone, which would be used to figure out where she was later on. On the other hand, the scene was so sloppy that her body probably wouldn't have been found for long. Nestor then called Catalina's mother just a few minutes after setting her daughter on fire. To make it look like he wasn't guilty, he told her mother 8 times that he hadn't seen Catalina and pretended to look out the window for her each time. He would even help look for her with her boyfriend, Lazaro, the next morning. After that, he would go to the police station with his family. When Catalina's body was found, Nestor comforted her family, hugged Eleonora, and even shared their sadness. Even though he knew he was the one who killed her, we now know that this horrible, planned behavior was a cold attempt to avoid being suspected and keep up the appearance that he was a caring friend. Now that we look back, many of Nestor's acts did seem odd at the time, though his dishonesty was good enough to keep him from being caught right away. We all know that the full scope of his betrayal wouldn't become clear until the investigation went further. Later, cops found a ring hidden in his bedroom, which was more proof. It was a horrible trophy for him to keep after killing his best friend. When all of this proof and Nestor's first confession were added together, he was arrested and charged with aggravated murder. And even though his first confession was used as proof, he refused to give any more recorded statements or confessions once the legal process started, and he hired a lawyer. So even though he hasn't been put on trial yet, I think it's pretty clear how this will end. His initial statement is more than enough to get him thrown out. At the time this tape was made, Nestor was still in preventative detention just outside of Cordoba. It's no surprise that many other prisoners often make death threats against him. People think that he is very likely to be hurt by violence, coercion, and other things in jail, because he is young and skinny. Because of this, he is usually kept away from the other prisoners. After police looked into the case more, they added a charge of gender violence to go along with the charge of severe murder by treachery. Right now, Nestor could get a life sentence, which is obviously bad news for him, and all the time he has left to live. Digital forensics are likely to reveal more about his friendship with Catalina, which could, as you might expect, have a big effect on the jury's decision. Figuring out how their relationship works is very important in this case, because it can help explain Nestor's motivations and even show if the attack was planned. But the prosecutor's office says this case is pretty much over unless new and surprising information comes to light. At this point, there are no signs that this hearing will be held up, but Nestor's mental health is also something that needs to be thought about. This is interesting because he has refused to help his defense team with any medical or psychological tests so far. In an effort to defend him, his mother said that he was under a lot of stress before the crime. Even so, to be honest, it's still really hard to feel sorry for him. Even though he hasn't said anything about it, Nestor is said to have deeply regretted what he did. Through his lawyer, he has also said sorry to Catalina's family, but he hasn't said anything official about her death yet. As you might guess, this case caused a lot of shock in Argentina. Catalina and Nestor were both young, smart, and full of promise. The fact that their lives were wasted shocked the whole country. This story is a sobering reminder of how bad it is to let your feelings and hidden obsessions get out of hand. For now, this case has not been fully solved. So Catalina's family has not yet found the peace of mind they need, and they are still sad about their daughter's death. Her body is still being held by cops because it could be used as proof in Nestor's trial. It makes sense that this is a terrible situation for Catalina's family, who want to cremate her as soon as possible. The father of Catalina, who is very sad, has since told press about his pain. He said, "I don't know why I'm in pain. I only want justice and for him to spend the rest of his life in jail because he doesn't deserve to live in this world." Catalina's family, friends, and classmates are all left to grieve without any conclusion while the case goes on. To remember her, her classmates put a sign on an empty chair at the beginning of the new term that said, "Catalina should be here." Fans who were moved by Catalina also paid honor to her online and called her a poor angel. All of them want justice through Nestor's hearing, and they all remember her and how she affected her community. But for her family, this loss is very emotional and hard to measure. They remember Catalina as a happy, kind, and loving person who was a great student with a bright future. She was happiness, kindness, and music all in one, and her loss has made their daily lives empty. As they go through this painful trip, we can only hope that justice will come in the future. It's clear to me that her sad death has touched a lot of people across the country. My heart goes out to her family and friends. That concludes today's case. If you believe that Catalina Gutierrez deserves justice, hit the subscribe button and like and share this video. Until next time, stay safe.